everybody? Welcome to CGU, Christian Gamers Union, or Christ Grace Unlimited. My name is Trust in Christ, and today is a good day. Today is a great day. Today is a day of the Lord. Now, last week, or might as well Monday, when we did our earlier Bible study, when we dealt with David showing love and kindness to, Jonathan's son, Mephibosheth, a young man that was lame in his feet, injured, fleeing, with his handmaid. Instead of killing off the lineage and the bloodline of Saul, David, out of love for his friend Jonathan, gave all the land that was allotted to Saul to him. And not only that, he had a seat at the table of the king as one of the king's sons, Mephibosheth, someone that David loved in honor of Jonathan. So that's one thing we learned from last week's Bible study, is to show love to your enemies, show love to God, and the greatest commandment of them all is to love the Lord your God with all your mind, body, and strength, which are all, you got to learn how to love God. Now, as we go through, the conquest of David, as we go through David's life, pretty much God gave him the victory in pretty much every battle at this point, because David followed God, he obeyed God, and he sought to build more for God. And even though God did not allow him to build him a temple as his heart's desire was, which is something that your typical man or woman, don't desire. They desire fame and fortune. You see this similar, action and characteristic in his son Solomon asking God for wisdom. We see that as David went, he conquered and overtook lands that belonged to Israel, which was promised to Abraham and Isaac. So we're going to read a little bit of that today as we go to 2 Samuel chapter 10. So let's look at verse number 1. And it came to pass after this that the king of the children of Ammon died, and Hanun his son resigned in his stead. Then said David, I will show kindness unto Hanun the son of Nahash, as his father showed kindness unto me. And David sent to comfort him by the hand of his servants for his father. And David's servants came into the land of the children of Ammon. And the princes of the children of Ammon said unto Hanun their lord, Thinkest thou that David doeth honor thy father, that he have sent comforters unto thee? Have not David rather sent his servants unto thee to search the city and to spy it out and to overthrow it? So what do we see here? These people gave David refuge, the father that died. And David sent to comfort but his son in the stead. A foolish young ruler, thought, why have you come into my land? Have you come here to spy and infiltrate it and to overtake and overthrow me? And the answer is no, but instead you're going to see what he does. Verse 4. Wherefore Hanun took David's servants and shaved off one half of their beards and cut off their garments in the middle, even to their buttocks, and sent them away. So pretty much he humiliated them. So pretty much, we come to comfort you on behalf of the king. Well, let me send David a message. F your comfort. That's pretty much what they did. We're going to humiliate you. We're going to pull down your pants, to make you, emasculated. So pretty much they were emasculated and were sent their way. Verse 5. When they told it unto David, he sent to meet them, because the men were greatly ashamed. And the king said, Tarry at Jericho until your beards be grown, and then return. And when the children of Ammon saw that they stank before David, the children of Ammon sent and hired Syrians at Jabesh-Horab, And the Syrians of Zoab, 20,000 footmen, and the king Machah, 1,000 men, and Istob, 12,000 men. And when David heard of it, he sent Joab and all the host of mighty men, so the best of his soldiers. And the children of Ammon came out and put the battle in array at the entering in of the gate. And the Syrians of Zobah, and of Roab, and of Istob, and of Machah, were by themselves in the field. When Joab saw that the front of the battle was against him before and behind, he chose all the men of choice of Israel and put them in array against the Syrians. And when the rest of the people he delivered unto the hand of Ashbishai his brother, that he might put them in array against the children of Ammon. And he said, If the Syrians be too strong for me, then thou shalt help me. But if the children of Ammon be too strong for thee, then I will come and help thee. Be of good courage, and let us play the men for our people, and for the cities of our God, and the Lord do which seemeth him good. And Joab drew nigh, and the people were with him, unto the battle against the Syrians, and they fled before him. And when the children of Ammon saw that the Syrians were fled, then fled they also before Abishai, and entered into the city. So Joab returned from the children of Ammon, and came to Jerusalem. And when the Syrians saw that they were smitten before Israel, they gathered themselves together. And Hadarezer sent and brought out the Syrians that were beyond the river. And they came to Helam and of Sabah, the captain of the host of Hadarezer, and went before them. And when it was told to David, he gathered all the men of Israel together, and passed over Jordan, and came to Helam. And the Syrians set themselves in array against David, and fought with them. So they fought even in that situation. And the Syrians fled before Israel, and David slew the man of 700 chariots of the Syrians, and 40,000 horsemen, and smote Sobach, and the captains of their hosts, who died there. And when all the kings that were the servants of Hadarezer saw that when they were smitten before Israel, they made peace with Israel and served them. So the Syrians feared to help the children of Ammon anymore. Pretty much you messed around and found out. Alright, let's go to chapter 11. So God gave David the victory, and notice David put work in himself. It's kind of dangerous what David is doing. Chapter 11, verse 1. And it came to pass, after the year was expired, at the time when the kings go forth to battle, that David sent Joab and his servants with them, and all Israel, and he destroyed the children of Ammon and besieged Rabbah. But David tarried still at Jerusalem, so he waited still instead of going up into that land of battle. And it came to pass in an eventide that David arose from off his bed and walked upon the roof of the king's house. And from the roof he saw a woman washing herself. And the woman was very beautiful to look upon. And David sent and inquired after the woman and said, Is not this Bathsheba, the daughter of Elam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite? And David sent messengers and took her. And she came in unto him, and he lay with her, for she was purified from her uncleanness. And she returned unto her house. So David slept with her, and she returned. And the woman conceived, and sent and told David, and said, I am with child, I'm pregnant. And David sent to Joab, saying, Send me Uriah the Hittite. And Joab sent Uriah to David. And when Uriah was come unto David, David demanded of him how Joab did, and how the people did, and how war prospered. So this is a time of battle. The soldiers are fighting, and pretty much what you see, David stays behind, scouts. There's beautiful women and lays with this woman, knowing full well that, guess what? This is Uriah's wife. I don't care. Let me sleep with him. And this is a foul move by David. And when you look in the Bible, this is obviously adultery. So he sends he sends his, pretty much his commander, Joab. And Joab gets Uriah, and he's talking to him right now. So that's what's going on. And notice before that, every conquest David had, pretty much he won. And we're going to see how this sin happens, how it affects him. Verse 8. And David said to Uriah, go down to thy house and wash thy feet. So take a break. We're in wartime. You gave me an update. Go and get rest. Wash your feet. And Uriah departed out of the king's house, and there followed him a mess of meat from the king. So he showered him with food. But Uriah slept at the door of the king's house with all the servants of his lord, and went not down to his house. So, pretty much, instead of going to rest and eat and get meat and wash himself, he stayed with his men. And pretty much his mentality is, if my men can't get rest, why should I rest? Why should I, be in comfort and sleep when my men are battle ready? Verse number 10. And when they had told David, saying, Uriah went not down unto his house, David said unto Uriah, camest thou not from thy journey? Why then didst thou not go down unto thine house? And Uriah said unto David, the ark, and Israel, and Judah abideth in tents. And my lord Joab, my captain Joab, and the servants of my lord are encamped in the open fields. Then shall I then go into my house to eat and to drink, and to lie down with my wife? As thou livest, and as thy soul livest, I will not do this thing. Noble man. Can David really punish a man for doing that? David spoiled his drinking, and look at David's agenda. A man after God's own heart. Instead of fessing up, which, David probably feared death, because when you read the law, adultery, the punishment is that man and that woman will be taken outside the temple's gates and stoned to death. But David, pretty much, he tries to cover up his sin and pretty much try to put a baby on that man. It's pretty much as we see a lot of men and women do. I don't want this shame on me, so go lay with your man and sleep with him. And just say, well, it's within the time of conception. We had intercourse, so you the daddy. Even though you were intimate with other men, or that man was pimping you out, and you're probably impregnated by him or her, whoever it is. Well, him, kind of confusing myself a little bit, but you know how that go. So pretty much David tried to trap Uriah by getting him to lay with his wife, even though he hasn't laid with his wife within the time of conception. So instead of doing that, he said, I won't do it. If my men are in battle, we're exposed, I'm not injured, I won't do this thing. Verse 12. And David said to Uriah, tarry here today also, and tomorrow I will let thee depart. So Uriah abode in Jerusalem that day and the morrow. And when David had called him, he did eat and drink before him. And he made him drunk And at even he went out to lie on his bed with the servants of his Lord. But he went not down to his house. So he didn't lay with his wife at home. And it came to pass in the morning that David wrote a letter to Joab, and sent it by the hand of Uriah. And he wrote in the letter, saying, See, set ye Uriah in the forefront of the hottest battle, and retire ye from him, that he may be smitten and die. So let's set him up. And it came to pass when Joab observed the city, that he assigned Uriah unto a place where he knew that valiant men were, so the best men of war were. And the men of the city went out and fought with Joab, and there some fell of great people, of people of the servants of David, and Uriah and the Hittite died also. So, just as David planned, Uriah died. His servant Joab set him up. David made the plot, and David got what he wanted and got his servants, killed. His soldier killed. Verse 17. And the men of the city went out and fought with Joab, and there fell some of the people of the servants of David, and Uriah the Hittite died also. Then Joab sent and told David all the things concerning the war, and charged the messenger, saying, When thou hast made an end of telling the matters of war unto the king, and if so be that the king's wrath arise, and he say unto thee, Wherefore approaches ye so nigh unto the city? When did ye fight? Knew ye not that they would shoot from the wall? Who smote Abimelech, the son of Jerubbesheth? Did not a woman press a piece of millstone upon him from the wall, that he died in Tebez? Why went ye nigh unto the wall? Then say thou, thy servant Uriah the Hittite is dead also. So pretty much they're plotting their excuse on why this man did, why Uriah died. So the messenger went and came and showed David all that Joab sent for him. And the messenger said unto David, Surely the man prevailed against us, and came out unto us in the field, and we were upon them even unto the entering of the gate. And the shooters shot off the wall upon thy servants, and some of the king's servants be dead, and thy servant Uriah the Hittite is dead also. Then David said unto the messenger, Thus shalt thou say unto Joab, Let not this thing displease thee, for the sword devour one as well as another. Make thy battle more strong against the city, and overthrow it, and encourage thou him. And when the wife of Uriah heard that Uriah her husband was dead, she mourned for her husband. So Bathsheba mourned for him. And when the morning was past, David sent and fetched her to his house. And she became his wife, and bare him a son. But the thing that David had done displeased the Lord. Of course, because guess what? He killed an innocent man, he killed a valiant man, and he committed adultery. And took this man's wife, and covered it up with his friend Joab. So, it was covered up. But guess what happened after that? Let's continue on. And the Lord sent Nathan unto the king. And the Lord sent Nathan unto David, so the prophet Nathan. And he came unto him and said unto him, There were two men in one city, one rich and another poor. The rich man had exceedingly many flocks and herds, but the poor man had nothing, save one little ewe lamb, which he had bought and nursed it up, and it grew up together with him and with his children, It did eat of his own meat, and drank of his own cup, and lay in his own bosom. It was unto him as a daughter. So it was a loved sheep. And there came a traveler unto the rich man, and he spared to take his own flock and of his own herd, to dress for the wayfaring man that was come unto him, but took the poor man's lamb and dressed it for the man that was come to him. And David's anger was greatly kindled against the man. And he said to Nathan, as the Lord liveth, saying it in the name of God, even though it's him, the men that have done this thing shall surely die, and he shall restore the lamb fourfold, because he did this thing, and because he had no pity. And Nathan said to David, thou art the man. You are the man, David. You did this. You are the rich man that had many sheep, and there was this poor man that had one. You're the one that stripped this sheep, this wife, Bathsheba, from his husband and had this man killed. You are the man. Thus said the Lord God of Israel, I anointed thee king over Israel, and I have delivered thee out of the hand of Saul. And I gave thee thy master's house, and thy master's wives into thy bosom, and gave thee the house of Israel and of Judah. And if it had been too little, I would moreover have given unto thee such and such things. Wherefore thou hast despised the commandment of the Lord, to do evil in his sight. Because, no, David did this in secret, but can anything be hidden from God? No. You can't hide from God. God saw it. God saw behind the scheme with him and Joab. He saw behind him having them be put in the forefront where the valiant men were. So even though he tried to cover his tracks, God knew his sin. Thou hast killed Uriah the Hittite with the sword, and hast taken his wife to be thy wife, and hast slain him with the sword of the children of Ammon. Now therefore the sword shall never depart from thine house, because thou hast despised me, and hast taken the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be thy wife. So what was David's punishment? You will always be at war, David. No rest. David could have been killed, but his punishment as king was no rest. Interesting. Verse 11. Thus saith the Lord, behold, I will raise up evil against thee out of thy own house, which we know is going to be his son, and I'll take thy wives before thine eyes, and give them unto thy neighbor, and he shall lie with thy wives in the sight of this son. Which did happen as well when you see what Absalom did to David's wives later on. For thou did it secretly, but I will do this thing before all Israel and before the sun. And David said unto Nathan, I have sinned against the Lord. And Nathan said unto David, the Lord hath put away thy sin, thou shalt not die. Howbeit, because this deed thou hast given great occasion to thine enemies of the Lord to blaspheme, the child also that is born unto thee shall surely die. And Nathan departed unto his house. And the Lord struck the child that Uriah's wife bare unto David, and it was very sick. Now, if you want to get the mentality of David when this happened, when you read the Psalms, you see that David mourned greatly after this sin was done. Greatly, when you look it up. You know, he asked God to cleanse him, and guess what? He cleansed him. He asked God not to take his spirit away from him, which God didn't. And it kind of shows us, in this story real quick. I'm not going to dwell too long in it because we got a little bit more to read. It shows us that even the best of us, we can fall. But what David did, instead of justifying himself like a lot of us do, he fessed up to it because he knew he couldn't hide from God. Because how could he? The prophet, exposed everything he did that was done secretly, him covering up. And when you study ancient culture, if you married a pretty much a widow, which she was, who had a child, that was a great noble deed back in those days. Like, look at David. Made, Uriah's wife a queen of a regular soldier. And that's so noble of him. But guess what? God saw what he was doing. That was not a noble deed. That was done with intent, to pretty much cover his sin. And that's pretty much, what that was. And if you want to catch up with where this was, found at, we might as well read it. This is found in Psalms. Let me look it up. Psalms 51. We're not going to read it all. But, let's see. Psalms 51. Someone remind me 2 Samuel 12:15. But Psalms 51, we get to see David's mentality. Alright, so to the chief musician, a psalm of David, when Nathan the prophet came unto him after he had gone into Bathsheba. And this kind of gives us a little bit more context of David's mentality after this. Have mercy on me, upon me, O God, according to thy loving kindness, according unto thy multitude of tender mercy, blot out my transgressions. Which we see, what did God do? He blotted it out. Wash me thoroughly from my iniquity, and cleanse me from my sin. For I acknowledge my transgression, and my sin is ever before me. And that's true. What should we do? Should we hide our sin before God? No. Now, I'm not saying you tell every man, your sin or your past, but admit to God your sins. I'm not saying you're going to remember every sin, because a lot of us, we can't remember all of them, but the sins that you do, fess up. You can't hide from God. It's that simple. Against thee and thee only have I sinned, and I've done this evil in thy sight, that thou mightest be justified when thou speakest, and be clear when thou judgest. Behold, I was shapen in iniquity, and in sin did my mother conceive me. Behold, thou desirest truth in the inward parts, and in the inward parts thou shalt make me know wisdom. Purge me with hyssop, and I shall be clean. Wash me, and I shall be whiter than snow. Make me hear to joy and gladness, that the bones which thou hast broken may rejoice. Hide thy face from my sins, and blot out all my iniquities. And who blots out our iniquities? God does. Christ does. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. Cast me not away from thy presence, and take not your Holy Spirit away from me. Restore unto me joy of thy salvation, and upon me with thy free spirit. Then I will teach transgressors thy ways. And you see David did that. And sinners shall be converted unto thee. Deliver me from blood guiltness, O God, thou God of salvation, and my tongue shall sing aloud of thy righteousness. So there you go. That's the mentality of David. When that was exposed to David, what did David do? You don't see it there. David cried out to God. He meditated to God. He asked God to forgive him. And he understood that the sin that he did it in front of God. Even though Only him, Bathsheba, knew of it, and he kept it hidden from Joab of why he was doing this thing, but he wanted to make sure he can hide his sin of adultery. God saw it, and God exposed him that very day. All right, so pretty much, if you sin, fess up to it. To keep it, quite simple, fess up to it and ask God to forgive you. Don't, kill good doers, because a lot of people do that. You see that with the mob, you see that with the gangs, you see that with the wicked. David behaved like a wicked man. Look at this righteous person, noble. How can I cover this up? Kill him. And do it indirectly, because a lot of people are like that. A lot of people indirectly try to assassinate or take a person out. Or we can say it like this: a lot of people try to frame, people into guilt, where you get put in a position that's bad on purpose, so that person can be shamed. David did the same to Uriah, where he had Joab to put him where the valiant men were, and he was shot down and killed. All right, let's return to chapter 12. All right. 15. And Nathan departed unto his house, and the Lord struck the child that Uriah's wife bare unto David, and it was very sick. Now, why was that child struck? Well, it was David's sin. It's very simple. David therefore besought God for the child. So he prayed and fasted and went in and lay all night upon the earth. So he prayed, he fasted, he laid. But what was God's punishment? The child is going to die. And the elders of his house arose and went unto him to raise him up from the earth. But he would not, neither did he eat bread with them. And it came to pass on the 7th day that the child died. And the servants of David feared to tell him that the child was dead. For they said, Behold, while the child was yet alive, we spake unto him, and he would not hearken unto our voice. How will he then vex himself, if we tell him that the child is dead? But when David saw that his servants whispered, David perceived that the child was dead. Therefore David said unto his servants, Is the child dead? And they said, He is dead. Then David arose from the earth, and washed and anointed himself, and changed his apparel. And they came into the house of the Lord, and worshipped. Then he came to his own house, and he required they set bread before him, and he did eat. And I like David. I'll say it like this. Sometimes the answer to your prayer is no. You can do all that intense fasting, but if the answer is no, and when you stop, your agenda is not to impress men, and it shows that David's intent for fasting and prayer was to inquire of God to save his son. But God's judgment was cast. So once he was done and the answer was no, he fixed himself up. He washed himself. He was like, you know what? I've been fasting for 7 days. Let me get something to eat. And this right here tells you a lot about heaven and little children, what we're about to read right now. Because this is kind of packed with a lot of, doctrine in here. Verse 21. Then said his servants unto him, What thing is this thou hast done? Thou didst fast and weep for the child, while it was yet alive. But when the child's dead, thou didst arise and eat bread? Like, dang, we thought that mourning was you mourn when the child alive and dead. But it's done like that? Pretty much. Was this all for show? No, it wasn't. So David's response, verse 22. And he said, While the child was yet alive, I fasted and wept. For I said, who can tell God whether, who can tell whether God will be gracious unto me, that the child may live? But now that he is dead, wherefore shall I fast? Can I bring him back again? I shall go unto him, but he shall not return to me. So put it simple like this. Where was David's his son at? His son was in heaven, in rest. So David, he will go back to him. So let's think about it, all those aborted babies that we murder in America every year with that great sin. Where are they? Heaven. Same thing with some of the Catholic doctrine. If a child isn't baptized, where do they go? Heaven. So pretty much when the innocent die, and they're not innocent from sin, like David said, he was conceived in sin, but God showed mercy unto the unborn and to children that, die before their age of accountability. And that's the same thing with fast. If the answer is no, why continue fasting? Because a lot of people, when they fast, to put it simple, they fast not just to get an answer, but they do it for show. Look at me. I'm fasting. I'm so hungry. I'm able to do it. I fasted all this time. David, you gotta know, he got up. And guess what he did? He ate, continued, on. It's quite simple. If I'm not getting what I prayed for, if the answer is no, why should I continue to torment my body by fasting and weeping? I understand how death works. Yeah, he's not on earth right now, but his spirit lives on. His spirit is in heaven. I will return to him when I die. But he won't come back here. It's that simple. And it's a good thing to look at when it comes to death. When we die, yes, we mourn. I'm not going to judge a person how they mourn. If they're in Christ, where are they? In heaven. Now, David is able to do it in that way and have such spiritual maturity to continue on his work. But he understood that, number one, God already set this judgment upon me. I had time to think and cry for this child, but the answer was no. So let me get myself together and see what I need to do. And I'll say this has happened to me as well in my life. When my father, he felt very ill, and it's been 2 years now. Man, time is going by fast, and it feels like it was yesterday. Thanksgiving Day 2022, Dad went cold blue, got revived, all that stuff. So what I do, I told my mom we need to, fast. So we fasted until December the 1st. Then my dad died, so I was like, you know what? All right, Mom, let's stop fasting. Let's eat. God said no. But was it a waste of time? No. No, fasting, some things come by only fasting and praying. But that doesn't mean you're going to get what you want, because it's according to the will of God. So did I get mad at God for not giving me what I wanted? No, I understood. No, he's in heaven. I still got to deal with the problems of this world. And that's another thing. Your ancestors, they are not, as we covered before, they are not watching over you. I know a lot of people said, I've been argued with many times. Your forefathers, ancestors, they're not watching down over you. They're not guiding you through your life. They're in rest. You're going to return to them. You're going to meet back with them. They're not going to come back to you and watch over you like they're your guardian angel. Guardian angels are not former men. No, those are angels sent by God to watch over you. When we die, we wait with Christ, where we're going to do what? We're going to come back on earth with Christ. The concerns of this world is no more. Same thing with this child. David understood this. The concerns of this child in this world is no more for him. Next time we meet, it's going to be in paradise. Interesting note with that. All right, let's finish this chapter up. Verse 24. And David comforted Bathsheba his wife, and went in unto her, and lay with her, and she bare a son. And he called his son named Solomon, and the Lord loved him. And he sent by the hand of Nathan the prophet, he called his name Jediah, because of the Lord. And Joab fought against Rabbah of the children of Ammon, and took the royal city. And Joab sent messengers to David, and said, I have fought against Rabbah, and have taken the city of waters. Now therefore gather the rest of the people together, and encamp against the city, and take it, lest I take the city, and it be called after my name. And David gathered all the people together, and went to Rabbah, and fought against it, and took it. And he took their king's crown from off his head. The weight thereof was the talent of gold and the precious stones, and it was set on David's head. And he brought forth the spoil of the city in great abundance. And he brought forth the people that were therein, and he put under saws, and under harrows of iron, and under the axe of iron, and made them pass through the brickland. And thus did he unto all the cities of the children of Ammon, or Ammon. So David and all his people returned unto Jerusalem. All right, that's going to be the conclusion of Bible study. Before we close, anybody have comments?
I have 3 points.
Go ahead.
I have two about Uriah in this particular. About watching just before of Cliff. But my first question is, Uriah the Hittite, if I'm not mistaken, that was one of the people that God had Moses wipe out. So then therefore Uriah must have been, I guess, made to what's the word? I guess convert. Is that right? Is that the correct word?
I'll have to look into that, but
Given the fact that Uriah wasn't a Jew.
I'll have to look into that, because that's kind of something that caught me off guard with that. I ain't gonna lie. But I know the Hittites were, a people amongst the Canaanites and like the Amorites.
Mm-hmm.
So he's probably a proselyte Jew.
Okay.
But he's also mentioned in the lineage of, I think the lineage of Christ. So he might. I have to look into that.
Okay.
What's your other question?
The other thing is I can't think of that one, but the other one is I was watching a video with Cliff, and he was, explaining to college. He was explaining to college students, as he has for like 20 years, evangelizing on college campuses. And the particular video that I was watching, he was trying to explain to an atheist about God. And what he said was that everything that has a beginning has a cause. And what my thinking was at that particular point would be, would there then be, as God doesn't change, it's impossible for him to learn anything, on top of his omniscience, his omnipotence, his omnitemperament, omnitemperance, whatever. And I forget, there's another one I might be missing there. But anyway, he's everywhere at the same time. Omnipresent. He's all those things, and he can't learn, and nothing's impossible for him. So then would we then say God has no cause?
Say the last part again.
Well, God doesn't have a beginning,
Oh yeah,
but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
everything that does have a beginning has a cause. So then one could surmise that God has no cause. So for him to create us is purely out of love.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought
And
that up. I did a little.
obviously as depicted in the scriptures, but
I'm glad you brought that first question up because I've glanced over that many times that Uriah was a Hittite. So I believe you're right that he dwelled in that land. And I'll just say it like this: so David did dwell among some of the heathens when he was on the run from Saul. But I'll have to assume since Uriah was a part of David's army, he had to be a proselyte Jew, most likely, because his lineage is of the Hittites. So that
hmm
was a great point that you brought up right there, Swish. All right, what was your third question?
I can't think of it right now. I'll have to
Okay.
maybe later on in the chat or something.
All right, anyone else? All right, Vessel closes out. The CGU is brought to you by
The
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 Bible.
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 All right, until next time, y'all.